This is yet another chapter. In our conversation about spirituality in times of isolation, with the intention of reflecting on what spirituality means in our lives. In these times, spirituality has been gaining significant attention, drawing a large audience and a great deal of interest. And for this conversation, I have invited the philosopher and Professor Lucia Galvão. It is a pleasure. I truly cannot measure the joy of having you here with us today. She is a guest whom listeners have been asking me to bring on for a long time. Professor, how are you? Hello, it is a great pleasure, truly.
The pleasure is mine. I am delighted. Thank you very much for the invitation.
We are the ones who should thank you for agreeing to talk with us in this series about spirituality. It truly is a great pleasure, Professor. For a long time, people have been asking me. They know about my interest in spirituality and philosophy, and they have requested this meeting. So, truly, it is with a very joyful heart that I speak with you today. There are many ways I could begin this conversation. I believe we are living through a time of great anxiety. I will try, in this 1 hour, to touch on some important points. But I personally want to ask you a question, because not long ago, you and your team made a post about a philosopher. In particular, one who is very dear to me. When I watched the film about her life for the first time, when it ended, I cried and spent several minutes crying, deeply moved by the power of this woman's message from back then. She speaks of philosophy, she speaks of spirituality, she speaks about the feminine. So, perhaps I would like to begin our conversation about spirituality and philosophy there, by talking a bit about the influences you have in your life, especially the philosopher Hypatia. I think she was a very powerful model for us to reflect on in today's world. As women, as a society, the pursuit of action, the pursuit of reflection, questioning, and indignation. I would like us to start by talking about how philosophy can transform our lives and the role of women. Let's begin with some reflection inspired by Hypatia. Good afternoon, Professor.
Good afternoon. Let's go ahead. She deserves it.
What can we say about her influence on who we are today as women and on what we think about today as philosophy? There is a gap, a very long period, during which philosophy, including spirituality, was also set aside. How can we, today, put some of her ideas into practice and seek and cultivate a deeper connection with philosophy, Professor?
Well, regarding Hypatia of Alexandria, although we do not have her own writings today, we know her story through her contemporaries. But one thing I am certain of, Petra, is that if we were to meet her with empathy and say to her, "You are a woman," she might be a bit startled, because her consciousness was at such an elevated level, so far above the characteristics of the physical form, that she did not perceive any kind of limitation. Any limitation in being a woman or a man, or whatever it may be. This is one of the elements I perceive, that when we identify with the outer form, whether it is being a woman or a man, of whatever religion, of whatever nationality, or whatever color it may be, the outer form is always limited. From the moment you become deeply aware of this human essence, which is full of potentials that we know so little about, we come into the world, and the human condition gives us a toolbox that we have barely opened. From the moment we focus on this deeper human nature, you realize that human beings are capable of overcoming any adverse circumstance. Well, in the world there is prejudice against this or that outer form, but there are human beings who are so much greater than their appearance that it becomes very complicated to imagine that any circumstance could hold them back. Imagine a society, in that context, in that historical moment, where it was very difficult for a woman to gain respectability from anyone, to the point that a great thinker or a great writer of the time, if he were inspired by a woman, that would be considered ridiculous. However, those who were inspired by her, I think they too would be startled to remember that she was a woman. She was a being who greatly transcended these characteristics of outward appearance. Many times we stop to think, a person who is born in a violent region, deprived of basic financial means, sometimes in a situation where they suffer prejudice, be it racial, sexual, or whatever it may be, this person will have great difficulty asserting themselves in that environment. Right, if it is an ordinary person like us. But if you imagine, I don't know, Mahatma Gandhi being born there, then I think he would overcome all of that and do what needs to be done. He would deliver his message. We have a very Brazilian example. We don't even need to look to Mahatma Gandhi. We know a man named Joaquim Maria Machado de Assis, who was born on Morro do Livramento in a servant's house. His mother died, his father died, he was the grandson of slaves, and he was raised by his stepmother, who was a laundress, Maria Inés, an extremely humble person. And he had access to education in the most, shall we say, limited and superficial ways. He was an autodidact. And today we have, more abroad than in Brazil, interestingly enough, people who place Machado de Assis alongside a Luis de Camões, sometimes next to a Miguel de Cervantes, or even a William Shakespeare. In the Portuguese language, he is sovereign, but on an international level, his value among the greats is beginning to be recognized. I also believe that all these people, even Gandhi himself, I know his biography well, I have studied his history extensively. I think that any of these individuals, if you were to approach them and say, you are a minority, you are this or that, you are poor, you are of mixed heritage, they would respond, I am what? Because there comes a certain moment when I look much more inward than outward. And when you look within, a level of content emerges, a richness of content, of a power over the environment. The circumstances yield before the inner strength of a person and become truly minor and far less powerful. And a person must bow, humanity must bow before someone who is capable of rising above their circumstances, whatever those circumstances may be. So, today I don't find anyone, I've seen many criticisms, but I don't find anyone who says, Gandhi wasn't very good because he was brown, or any other qualifier of that kind, and no one even remembers what color Gandhi was, because, after all, at this point he has no color at all, the body is gone, but the ideas remain, grand and magnificent, do you see? And the homeland was a woman. Well, whether she was a woman or a man, that body has been gone for many centuries. But her message, her image, the power she held is truly remarkable. There is a saying you might know, which comes from the Confucian tradition. It says that ordinary men talk about other men. Average men talk about things. And exceptional men talk about ideas. And it is precisely those who speak of ideas who rise above circumstances and make history, in such a way that no one is willing to give up their ideas, regardless of the characteristics of their packaging.
What you bring is truly special. It already unfolds into several topics I want to discuss with you. The first is the question of this identification we have with our own body. I want to talk about this with you. We'll see where our conversation will take us. But there is also another matter that I wanted to discuss with you. When you mention this question of the idea, the power of the idea, and also the idea of Hypatia, also the honor given to one's own body, which is an important vehicle for our manifestation here. So we have two directions here for us to understand. Now, let's delve deeply into our live session today, which is about spirituality in times of isolation. At first glance, we are experiencing a crisis of the body. Today, it is a physical crisis, the transmission of a virus that makes us aware of and reveals the fragility of life. And it raises the question, How should I or can I honor this body? How should I be healthy or build this health? And this is also at the foundation of many philosophical studies. And, on the other hand, the opposite of this, which is the disidentification with this body. It is just a body, a vehicle for perhaps something much more sacred. In the midst of this paradox, Professor, how does philosophy help us with so many doubts in life?
There are several paradoxes, but honestly, Petra, I don't think this is one of them. This one is very coherent and it merges into a single idea. Imagine the following situation: a person who is completely identified with their body, who pampers the body in every possible way, and whose pleasures are all sensory, not intelligible. This person, the way they treat their body, if they are addicted to sensory pleasures, probably sleeps too much, eats too much, perhaps drinks too much. A person who is not identified with their body, but rather with intelligible pleasures, who is lucid, who has a richer inner life, you can see that such a person is much more capable of deciding what is good for the body than if you let the body decide for itself. Imagine lucidity taking care of the body. Would it give the body more nourishment than it needs? Would it give the body more rest than it needs? Or will it addict the body to a host of things that harm it? So, there is no paradox here. There is only one thing. Lucidity at the wheel is the first to benefit from the body. Because it is a vehicle that requires limits, that requires restrictions. You cannot simply let it loose to its appetites, because the first to be harmed is the body itself. Our body needs lucidity to guide it. And this is good for it. Imagine a father who wants to be very democratic at home and lets his children decide the grocery list, what to do with the money, what to buy. Do you think these children would be healthy if they were the ones deciding what to buy at the supermarket? Why are they healthy? Because it is the father who decides. It is lucidity. It is maturity. They are healthy because they are cared for by someone who sees further than they do. In the same way, our consciousness, our mental consciousness, our spiritual consciousness, so to speak, in relation to bodily consciousness, if you let it decide, it is a disaster. And, in general, we are facing a crisis that is not just this tragedy we are experiencing now. We are facing a daily crisis of obesity around the world, of addictions of all kinds. In other words, despite being so sensory, we definitely do not know how to take good care of our bodies. We surrender to its appetites. Therefore, lucidity is doubly beneficial for both body and soul. There is no paradox here. There is only one way forward.
And regarding this lucidity, Professor, it is a practice, and I mention this in times of isolation, when many people, faced with great uncertainty about tomorrow, about what will happen, about their own health and bodies, have turned inward. Often, this is uncomfortable. Often it brings anxiety and distress. But then, a second moment may arise. I am asking, okay, I am putting forward a hypothesis here. Could there be a second moment in which this reflection arises as a necessity? And so I ask, is lucidity something we cultivate through philosophy, through a form of spirituality? How do you see the process of opening our perception to this lucidity, or training ourselves to be lucid?
There is an example that has almost become a cliche in all the live sessions. I've been mentioning it, but that's because it's so useful that I haven't found a better one yet. It's the story where people would say to Socrates, "Look, Socrates, you're such a great philosopher. What if I tie up the 30 tyrants of Athens here and you talk to them for about 5 hours? When I let them go, will they all have become philosophers?" Then Socrates would reply, "My mother, Phaenarete, was an excellent midwife. But there is one thing she could never do, which is to deliver a child from a woman who was not pregnant." Do you understand this? You can indeed have discipline, perseverance, and consistency to develop this spark of spirituality. But first, you must be pregnant with it. There must be something germinating within you, a certain restlessness, a desire to bring forth your true identity, a longing for your own self. This is something that this quarantine has encouraged a lot. You are inside your home and you are forced to turn inward, because normally we run away from ourselves all the time through circumstances. I often say that the greatest loneliness is being unaccompanied by ourselves. And that is how we live. People say, well, now we are isolated. We are together now. Before, we were isolated. Isolation is from ourselves. It is turning inward and being able to settle accounts with your conscience regarding your life. Where do I want to get to with all this? What I am doing to move in that direction? What are the things that are stealing me from myself? How can I strengthen myself and get through these things? And not be led astray. Ultimately, we have an opportunity for a genuine inner life. And furthermore, Petri, something I also find very interesting, is the legitimate outer life, which is not doing things mechanically. There was a thinker from the last century, a very interesting philosopher named Mircea Eliade, a mythologist and philosopher, who said that the sacred is the function of giving meaning. Have you ever imagined, when you start, say, cleaning the floor of your house, not, as people say, just daydreaming, but actually focusing on what you're doing, imagining that you are cleaning both the outside and the inside at the same time, and giving meaning to that act? When you clean a window, the glass of a window, imagining that you yourself will become as transparent as it is. In ancient traditions, such as, for example, in medieval alchemy, this is called sympathetic magic. You perform an action with the intention of affecting another, equivalent plane. In other words, you clean something while imagining that you are purifying yourself as well. This function has meaning. You clean a window with the intention of becoming more transparent yourself. You put everything in its place, also imagining that you are placing clarity above passions, above inertia, in other words, organizing your inner world as well. This is the Platonic concept of justice, everything in its proper place. There is no evil in the universe. Evil is disorder. There is an example we often use at New Acropolis, which is to imagine a piece of coal and a diamond. You realize that both are made of the same thing, carbon molecules. What makes one so fragile, so brittle, and the other so strong, one of the hardest minerals, is precisely this. So strong, in fact, that it can cut glass. It is simply the organization of the carbon molecules within. They are the same units, disorganized and organized. So, imagine that as we organize things within ourselves, every time we bring order to something outside, we begin to reveal our own potential to become like a diamond. You will see this reference often in Eastern philosophy. The Dorj symbolizes the diamond mind. It is the person who organizes themselves in such a way that their mind transforms from coal into diamond. So, to bring order, to clean, to purify, to make things transparent, with this feeling of wanting to imbue everything with a spirit of gratitude, all the things that humbly serve us. To leave all of them infused with this spirit. They give us so much. Now, we want to give something back to them. And, at the same time, we wish to carry out this operation on two levels. You realize that this is an opportunity for us to open a new chapter in our lives, where we are alive here, present in our own lives. As Carl Jung would say, body and mind together. It is a brilliant opportunity. You can leave here with a life filled with meaning, but you must feel the need for it.
Perhaps our challenge, Professor, throughout life, is this journey toward the union of body and mind, for one to be truly connected to the other, or for our soul to truly be the one guiding our lives.
Our journey is to create unity both within and without. Harmony, right? For the Greeks, unity was the good. The good is that which unites, according to Plato. And for Plato himself, beauty is that which harmonizes each thing in its proper place. It is as if you imagine a work of art, a painting. There are different colors. When they are harmonized, they produce beauty. The different sounds of a melody, when harmonized, produce beauty. So, goodness unites and beauty harmonizes. This applies both within and without. Now, it is very difficult to unite and harmonize externally if you have not accomplished this within yourself, because superficiality generates superficiality. A profound person is capable of deep relationships and profound actions that introduce value to the world. It is a matter of parallelism. The Greeks called this kalos agatos, which was as if it were a single virtue, which was beauty and goodness together. One harmonizes and the other unites. But this begins within us and then is reflected in the world.
Now, a question I want to ask you, bringing this to our current reality. I even talked about this on my program over the weekend, and it sparked a really wonderful conversation with the listeners. On one hand, there is the pursuit of beauty, of beautiful actions, of our conduct, of the beauty found in ethics, in our anyway, and on the other hand, which we see a lot of today, which is also discussed, the idea of political correctness, which perhaps is a way to forge correct behaviors. Even if, internally, that correctness does not truly exist. How can we be coherent, Professor, in our actions and not just politically correct? I bring this up because many times I will give you an example, okay? The act of not eating meat, for instance, which is beneficial for the environment. Some Eastern philosophies even advocate for this, right? The sacredness of meat and the practice of not eating it, and so on. And yet, that is not truly within me. It is much more an external gesture than an internal conviction. How can we reflect on this? In today's times, the era of social media, it is very easy to appear to be something I am not truly inside. And this inner construction, how do you see this?
Unfortunately, this is not something new. This has been happening for a very long time. Plato, for example, already said that a just action, if it is only to comply with a social code, that is a social pact, not true justice. He said that you are what you do when the last door closes behind you. Some time ago, just to illustrate this idea you're talking about, I had a friend, a rather well-known person, who traveled to a first world country, considered a capital of courtesy, respect, and all those values. And she told me that she got on a bus where there were signs asking people to give up their seats to the elderly, to pregnant women as well, and everyone followed this rule religiously. And at one point, a young man got on this bus. A young man who had no apparent illness, but was carrying a lot of luggage and looked very tired, sweating, utterly exhausted. People looked at him, but he didn't fit into the categories of elderly or pregnant woman. No one stood up, even though he was almost about to faint. She said, "Do you know who stood up, Lucia? This little Brazilian here. He stood up. And when something is just a code, it is coercion, not conviction. It is merely an appearance. So, the person is suffering. But is she a pregnant woman? Is he elderly? No. True courtesy, true generosity, is born from looking into another's eyes and feeling their need. And that feeling resonates within you. If not, it is just a thin veneer, a social mask. This is the great struggle we have, for example, with ethics. The ethics of coercion and of conviction. What would we do if we could act with impunity, to do whatever we pleased? If there were no laws or punishments, what would we do? if you had the conviction to say, I would be just. I would be just, even if I were Robinson Crusoe alone on an island in the middle of the ocean. I would be just, because being just is the greatest thing a human being can be. There is no happiness, no greater or better flavor than the taste of kindness and justice. Just yesterday I was talking with Rosandro, a well-known psychologist, and we were discussing this, that today it is unanimous in the field of mental health that one of the greatest remedies is the practice of kindness. The pleasure it brings cannot even be compared to Belgian chocolate. It is a taste and a level of satisfaction that it brings. And those who experience the human condition do so for its own sake, not for what they might gain or avoid losing from it. It becomes a kind of manipulation that reaches every level of action. If I do this, I will get something in return. So, if you are not going to gain anything, you will not do it. You will not be ethical, you will not be generous, you will do nothing. It is merely a matter of external pressure. This is transplanted to all levels in such a way. And our conversation about spirituality sometimes even extends into spirituality itself. There was a Sufi master. I don't know if you've heard of her. Her name was Rabi'a, Davi'a, or Rabi'a of Basra. She belonged to the esoteric tradition of Islam, Sufism. And she had a prayer, Petra, that I find truly remarkable. She would say, My Lord, God, if I seek you out of fear of your hell, burn me in your hell. If I seek you out of desire for your heaven, cast me out of your heaven. But if I seek you only for what you are, receive me into the embrace of your glory. Do you understand? How many people do things for what we are, for what the other truly is? The other is a human being. I am a human being. And we must necessarily recognize each other. We must have the dignity to see the value of life, not only of a human being, but of life in general. We must learn to look at things and to see them as they are in themselves, not merely as a reflection of myself, not merely as a projection of my own interests. It's that phrase I always use from Tolstoy as well. There are those who walk through a forest and see only firewood for their own fire. Of everything that is there, I only look and ask, what use is it to me? I never ask how I can be of service to it. So everything becomes just appearance, everything. A thin veneer that barely covers anything. We often see, and now it is happening again, as it has many times throughout history, that when there is chaos, confusion, or rebellion somewhere, you see well-dressed people breaking shop windows and stealing. How many times have we witnessed this? People, let us say, with a high level of culture by conventional standards, that suddenly, faced with a situation of impunity, the mask falls away and we see nothing more than the crude beast who had been wearing a well-decorated mask. Nothing more. Behind it all, the untamed animal remains. And this is truly saddening. We see how our education, our culture, is just a veneer, a mask. We do everything, but we do not transform within.
How, in these times, can we not give up? Because there is so much news showing us this human side, so much information about it. Today, people are bombarded. We are speaking here to a large audience of news consumers. I received many messages from people at the beginning, in the midst of this pandemic and isolation. They shared how they were overwhelmed by sadness, panic, and depression. How, in this moment, this work of study, of philosophy, of practicing philosophy, because I think this is very important. We should also talk about action, because it is not just about intellectual study. How can this help us not to succumb in a moment like this, to see only that side, but more animalistic, more violent, more aggressive, and when I say aggressive, I don't just mean the aggression of fighting or physical violence, but also verbal violence, which we have witnessed so much these days. How can we avoid falling into that? Professor, in your assessment and studies, during a critical moment like this, which, after all, has happened at other times in history, right? How do you maintain your center in a moment like this?
For me, the fundamental thing is goodbye. In philosophy, the motivation that gets us out of bed in the morning, as philosophers, is believing in the human being. And there are two fundamental things here, Pedro. First of all, to be less bombarded by the panic around us, by the anger surrounding us, and to begin working on a reflection about your own life experience. Today, everywhere you look, people are saying that humanity is hopeless, that humanity is a lost cause. Look at the abyss we are heading towards. Look at what so-and-so, this person, and that person are doing. But in truth, if you trust a little in yourself and in your own reflection, stop and think about all the human beings you have met in your life. I have already done this statistic with myself. How many were morally degenerate, violent? How many were capable of reaching intense physical violence? How many, from my personal experience, I came to the conclusion that they did not even reach 5%. 95% or more of the people I have met in my life were good people. Sometimes, people just wanted to live their own simple lives, not willing to face great challenges, but only wishing to raise their children in peace, not wanting to harm anyone. How many? 95% of the people I have met in my life. Why do we accept when someone tells us that this statistic is wrong? That 99% are going downhill, wanting to harm everyone? Let it be. To have the ability to close off a little, to close your ears to what so-and-so, this person, or that person says, and to work on reflecting upon your own experience, to have your own ideas. In other words, to occasionally pause and look within our own minds and ask how many of these ideas are truly mine. I will build now, I will take my life experience and reflect upon it, and I will reach my own conclusion. Another important thing is to realize that the world is dual. In other words, just as there are abysses, there are also Himalayas. From time to time, look up, or as often as you can. I don't mean only in history. History is full of great men, but there is always that mental escape. What if history lied? What if it made this up? All right, then turn to current history. There are plenty of your contemporaries who are remarkable. Seek them out a bit, get to know these examples. There are wonderful people in the world, truly wonderful. Just today, I posted on my social media page. Again, I have posted about this before. It is about a doctor from Zimbabwe, Dr. Dixon Sherbanda. I invite you to learn about his story later. A beautiful case, a true hero of our time, alive, young, and active today. In other words, the world is full of people who are going against the grain of this alienation. Entirely so. And they are dedicating all their energy and lives to adding value to the world, to the lives of others. They do not accept closed doors and are capable of remarkable achievements. That is, it is simply a matter of combating the morbid focus, of only wanting to seek out the garbage. Imagine that I want to introduce a tropical fruit to a friend of mine who came from Europe. Let's say, a fruit that isn't even that exotic, but just as an example, a banana. I want him to get to know a banana. I will not give him a rotten banana to eat. But rotting is part of the banana's life cycle. Are you trying to hide that from him? I am not hiding anything. Rotting is part of the life cycle of all living beings. It's just that this is not the best moment to get to know it. I will offer this banana at the height of its flavor, ripe, with its taste at its peak. That's how it is. All things are dual. Why should we only talk about the worst moments of human beings? When we speak of others, we only remember their flaws. When we talk about our own lives, we only recall unpleasant events. In other words, we have a focus, a terrible bias. And this is unhealthy. It is where human consciousness focuses. It amplifies. So, my advice is to seek out examples of great individuals. If you start looking, you will be surprised by how many there are. Truly good people, and here, right now.
Professor, How do you see the internet? For some time now, I have been following New Acropolis. Everyone, I hardly need to say it, because many people from your audience are here, but for those from the CBN audience, 500,000, 500,000 followers, almost. There are videos that reach 1 million views, 2 million, thousands upon thousands of views. People are thirsty for this knowledge, for these philosophical and ethical references. And at the same time, as journalists, we have done countless interviews saying, look, we need to put down our phones. We are overdoing it, an abuse of technology that disconnects us from ourselves. However, now, connection is mostly virtual. How do you see this issue? Can we have greater access to knowledge through the internet? What does the internet represent? For this moment in our lives, perhaps as a leap for humanity or not, with that philosophical perspective you mentioned we should have, of looking at my own life, drawing my own conclusions rather than simply accepting those handed to me, how do you see the tool of technology and the internet for us? In today's world, in the practice of thinking?
This has been a question people ask me everywhere, Petra. Professor Armando has a very funny habit, just between us. He wants to escape from his own life, either out of weakness, or because he is afraid to confront it, or because he does not want to take the reins and responsibility for his own existence. He creates escape vehicles. He always has. Then, when things start to get out of hand, the blame falls on the vehicle, not on him. A man who wants to alienate himself will do so even with smoke signals, even with a game of marbles. The means themselves are not to blame for anything. Every time I will use a computer and can't manage, when there are problems and I call a technician to fix it, I often see that he writes in his report PO. I went to ask, what does that mean? What is the problem with the computer? What is it? PO. Operator problem. In other words, the problem with your computer is between the screen and the chair. That is, for heaven's sake, I don't know, man, I don't like your life. You want to alienate yourself. You want to escape into some fantasy. Whatever means you provide, he will use that means to escape. There are worse cases. There are people escaping into drugs. There are people fleeing into truly wild things out there. Well, if someone wants to escape, no one can hold them back. The solution so that a person does not become addicted to anything is to make them love their own life. And then, would the internet, as a medium, be very effective? I always imagine Plato with Twitter. That is the dream of my life. Can you imagine? Plato there every day. Excerpts from the allegory of the cave. The means themselves are good, people. When someone has principles and goals, the means are good, they bring effectiveness. Let me tell an infamous joke. Please forgive me, Petra, it really is infamous, but it is useful here. It goes like this. A young man loved his fiancée. They were to marry. One day, he visited her, looked through her window, and saw her kissing another man on the couch. He became very upset, furious. He decided to take a radical measure, to sell the couch. Brilliant, right? You see, what we want is to get rid of the social aspect within ourselves. We want to sell the couch because, in reality, it is just the means. But the real problem is deeper. The problem lies with the operator. Now, there is indeed a risk regarding social networks, as with anything else, but it is not something exclusive to social networks. Once again, it is the human being who does not know how to handle the toys he himself has created, which is to substitute the virtual for the face-to-face. Do you know why? It is in the presence of the other, when the other is annoying, that you are required to develop patience. It is in the presence of the other that you yourself are irritating. This requires the other to be tolerant, and so one sculpts the other, each one smoothing out the rough edges of the other. And everyone grows. Differences exist for this very reason. Everyone smooths out their edges until they fit together like a great puzzle. Now, I am in a virtual environment. If you annoy me, I just change the channel. I block you, leave the page, and move on. In other words, you turn a human being as easily as you turn a page in a book before they have the chance to help you grow in any way, anything. In other words, this threatens to weaken the human being, making them wrap themselves in cotton wool. The greatest problems in life come from living together, but so do the greatest joys and achievements. We are born to be with others. Even before Homo sapiens sapiens, our ancestors already lived in community. There is much for us to learn from this. What I fear is that people's psychological immunity is decreasing. They become increasingly intolerant of any imperfection in others. Why is that? Because now there is the option to change the channel. It's no longer like before, when the presence of the other was mandatory, and you had to evolve until you found a point of adjustment. This can trap a person in psychological infantilism. It's complicated. If he goes too far, then he is replacing life with a more comfortable, psychologically safe vehicle. But he does not grow. Every discomfort, he eliminates it. And, as my dear grandmother used to say, necessity is what teaches the frog to jump. Isn't that so? It is in the dullness of others, in my own dullness, in the discomforts of the environment, that I will grow. To be able to overcome all of this without ceasing to be myself. So, yes, this is a risk. But, once again, it is not the internet's fault, but from the excesses of human beings, from their escapes, from complacency, from not wanting to. Everyone wants to survive, but to truly live, few are willing. It takes effort. It takes effort to think, to have your own ideas, to build your own feelings, to take charge of your life, to have a dream, to have an ideal, to walk toward it, to be responsible for your choices. All of this is a lot of work. But that is what it is about. We came here for this. And not to merely watch life and select its episodes as if it were a series. Only those that please me the most. We are already somewhat psychologically infantilized. You can notice this. The emotional side of humanity lags far behind, while the practical mind is way ahead. We do not have control over our emotions, as we have control over a mathematical equation to produce a new technological invention. We do not have. We are very unbalanced. There is a risk that this imbalance will grow even greater. This, indeed, is a concern, and it worries me even more now. Because the people who had to stay in front of this, or chose to stay in front of this all the time, during quarantine, they may settle into a way of life that makes them not want to return anymore. I am already seeing people saying, I'm not going anymore. I'm going to give up the building where I used to work, my own business. Everyone will work from home. I'm not leaving the house anymore. Everyone thought it was funny, and now there's a risk that this will become even more pronounced. Living together, it's annoying. I don't want that anymore.
So, do you think this quarantine could make this worse? Let's say, this isolation? Shall I continue later, if God wills to let me continue?
We were already living in a state of continuous isolation, because when you look at another person and only see in them what interests you, and do not see another human being who is just as important, and with so many dreams and rights to be here, as much as you are already alienated. Santa used to say that the most immoral thing that exists is to treat a human being as a means and not as an end in themselves. We had been doing that. Now, there is still the danger of wanting to distance myself even more, because then I remain in my comfort, and nothing bothers me. When nothing bothers you and you are in the midst of a journey, you run the risk of not completing it. In the middle of the path, an extremely comfortable sofa appears. I no longer travel, I stop right there. And in our lives, we still have a long way to go to come a little closer to fulfilling the human condition, to what nature expects from us.
And Professor, you were saying, and now I can't, of course, help but think about the current moment our country is living through. When you talk about not confronting what bothers me, right, we are experiencing a very striking moment of that. In the collective, right, especially in Brazil, There is this incapacity. We keep talking about it. About the history of polarization, where one person doesn't listen to the other and already judges, already labels from all sides. We are witnessing this today. What do I do? When I look at this political scenario, which I believe is a reflection of our society, of our construction, is the solution also collective, or is the solution individual? Should I work on myself to become better, to be able to truly listen to others? Are there solutions even in moments when it seems like there is no way out? When conversation does not take place, the bond with the other is not established, because it is much easier to label the other and immediately dismiss what they have to say to me.
I find this very interesting because you know that these polarizations originated in a French kingdom around the 17th century. In other words, we lived for 16 centuries without anyone ever having heard of it, of these tendencies of left and right, and yet no one was any less happy because of it. And now it seems as if this has become so visceral, as if it were the essential question of human life. I find this very curious. What happens, Petra, is that every time we reach an exhausted stage in history, and I believe that is what we are experiencing now, an exhaustion of a certain level, a process like a staircase occurs. You have reached the limit of this step, and then nature places a wall in front of you. We keep trying to move forward, because we are, above all, creatures of comfort. This begins to generate pain and suffering. And if people do not look upward in search of a solution, they begin to destroy themselves here. They polarize, trying to find solutions on one side or the other, fighting among themselves. There is no other chance, unless we look upward. It's not to one side or the other, it's upward. But what happens? You cannot force everyone to ascend. Not everyone is pregnant with philosophy, with their own ideas, with transformation. What you can do, the best you can do for the whole, is to ascend yourself. And from up there, from the higher step, you begin to say, hey everyone, it's here, come this way. In other words, teaching by example, which is such a common saying, will become a reference point. The fact that someone has ascended, that is it. The commonplace nature of this statement, that is it. And from the moment a person looks at the menu of options in their life and doesn't just see those worn-out choices of foolish, superficial dualities, but begins to see that on this menu, there is someone who chose to grow, who chose to seek a vertical path, they already have a new option in their life. Some will follow this option. Some will climb that step because you did. There are two possibilities for you to transform others. In truth, the second pattern is the only way for you to transform others. The best way for you to do something for the people you love is to grow as a human being. It's no use trying to force them to climb up from below. It won't work. That doesn't work. There is something called free will. Each person ascends when they are truly motivated and interested in rising. But if you go ahead, you become a reference point. The best thing you can do for those you love is to grow as a human being. You might think, no, that's selfish. But it's not. You grow for yourself and for all those who, by seeing you grow, find a reference and you prove that it is possible. So you grow for the whole. What you do is for the whole. So it is also a political attitude in the sense that it thinks of the polis, thinks of the whole, thinks of the many, of multiplicity, a solution of harmony. Because otherwise, humanity likes me just as much as.
You said something key for me. It is to seek a solution of harmony, and not to be just another agent of chaos.
Right? It's funny, because I find the human being to be so creative. Forgive my honesty, but it's a creativity for inventing nonsense. Out of the ordinary. Prejudice arises from differences in religion, from different continents, or with different skin colors. One is, I don't know, of one gender, another of a different one. If none of that exists anymore, they invent a label that isn't marked on the skin, isn't marked anywhere. One is on the left, another is on the right. For the love of God. For the love of God. And if even that ends, one will be from the purple party, another from the lilac party. There will always be something invented because humans want to divide. So, people are always inventing things that make no sense at all. Now, if you think about it, have you ever stopped to ask yourself, Petra, what is the root of all prejudice? Separation is a very interesting thing. Imagine closing your eyes and saying, my personality is better than everyone else's in the world. Then you open your eyes and see, what is the gender, what is the color, what is the nationality of your personality? And you say, this is the best. Why? Because it's mine. You realize that the first prejudice is personalistic. I am better and more important than everyone else. And then come all the characteristics of this self that you consider superior, simply because they are yours. And it's interesting that people don't realize that when you experience prejudice and then have the historical opportunity to reverse it, instead of promoting equality, you want to generate revenge. Now I'm going to take revenge on those who humiliated me. And prejudice has the same level of atrocity, no matter who is in the position above or below. It is the same level of savagery, of atrocity. Nothing changes, whether it is this person or that person who is in power. We have to abolish this. We have to abolish a social mentality where we do not win together, but rather win over one another. I usually share an example that I once read in a report from an American institute conducted at a university. They took 30 university students and went around asking each of them a question. These were young people who had studied together for quite some time and knew each other well. Would you rather receive $5,000 while your 29 friends each get only $2,000? Or would you prefer to receive $10,000, but all your 29 friends would each get $20,000? Can you believe that most of the young people preferred to get 5, just to be on top? There is no satisfaction in being victorious if there are no defeated ones. Your victory cannot be shared. Your victory must be over others. We live in a society where each of us, individually, cultivates this mindset, because society itself is an imaginary construct. What truly exists are individuals making tremendously selfish choices. The Tibetan tradition often says that the greatest evil of humanity is the heresy of separateness. We believe that we are truly separate, when in reality this is nothing but an illusion. And I honestly believe that this selfishness, this sense of separateness, is the reason we have condemned our civilizational model. This is what has led to the exhaustion of this stage. Because the way things are, it simply cannot go on. So, when people realize that a way of life is doomed, instead of seeking the remedy, they take more of the poison. This is what we face when confronted with a wall. Instead of searching for a solution, we take more of the poison that brought us here. In other words, more separateness, more hatred, more selfishness, more manipulation. Honestly, I don't know if you agree with me, but sometimes I don't know of anything more cruel than seeing so many people dying, families in despair, losing loved ones, and people manipulating this situation. People manipulating for prestige, for political reasons, stealing money meant for equipment. How can a human being reach such a level of cruelty? How is it possible? In an extreme situation where people are experiencing profound pain, they can't even bury their loved ones. It's something insane. How can anyone take advantage of a situation like this? In other words, we are living through a moral intoxication, a serious one, of selfishness. And they want to solve it with even more selfishness. There is a philosophical maxim that says there have always been, throughout history, builders of pyramids and destroyers of pyramids. Choose which group you want to belong to. But only the names of the builders are remembered in history, like Egypt. The destroyers are not. They are part of an anonymous mass of barbaric troglodytes who dissolve everything. as if they were the worms of history. They go there and dissolve all the bodies. So, it is truly remarkable. We are intoxicated and we take even more poison. This is what we are experiencing today.
This is what we are experiencing today. I think this might be my last question for you. Truly, it has been a great pleasure, Professor, to be able to share your worldview, because I really appreciate the idea you brought forth. Philosophy is about observing our lives and our experiences with clarity, isn't it? To drink from different sources and to observe what we are living, and not just to drink from sources, not just to be a parrot, a mere reproducer of what has already been said, right? Experience is very important. It is important, and I see that you bring this forth with great strength. With this question, I am not looking for a formula, you know. Perhaps what I want is a beacon, because we have raised several questions here for everyone who is watching. I also believe it is a personal experience, but on a personal level, in your view, what would be a step we could take as we leave this live today and begin to practice? Perhaps a reading, perhaps a different perspective, perhaps a practice that ranges from therapies to psychoanalysis. I don't know, something that we can put into practice, moving from this reflection to action, to bring about transformation, even if it's just transforming my own day. In your view, is there a path, a first step we can take? I know you do a lot of this in your courses, but is there a guiding light that can help us, in some way, change this reality, even if just a little? Is there?
I recommend something that I am practicing myself and have advised to everyone I know. At least one act of generosity per day. Every single day. Do not lay your head on the pillow without having performed an act of generosity. If you go to bed and think, I haven't done anything today, get up, call that friend who is alone at home, isolated during quarantine, and say, look, I am with you. You can count on me. Call me if you need to, if you need anything. Or, I don't know, go online and share something positive with people. I believe in you. I believe in myself.